Welcome friends, James Corbett here, CorbettReport.com, with an important update for the 6th of September 2017. I'm sure many of you have already seen this story, but it absolutely is worth going into. This coming from the Nikkei Asian Review. China sees new world order with oil benchmark backed by gold. Yuan-denominated contract will let exporters circumvent the US dollar. China is expected shortly to launch a crude oil futures contract priced in yuan and convertible into gold in what analysts say could be a game changer for the industry. The contract could become the most important Asia-based crude oil benchmark, given that China is the world's biggest oil importer. Crude oil is usually priced in relation to Brent or West Texas Intermediate futures, both denominated in US dollars. China's move will allow exporters such as Russia and Iran, aka those in the NATO crosshairs, to circumvent US sanctions by trading in yuan. To further entice trade, China says the yuan will be fully convertible into gold on exchanges in Shanghai and Hong Kong. The rules of the global oil game may begin to change enormously, and that's not all. I really do suggest you go and read through the entire story, and this is covered in other outlets as well, so please pick a few different sources and get some more background on this, as it goes into talking about the fact that there has been the yuan-denominated gold futures available on the Shanghai Gold Exchange for over 1 year now. And this story even gets into the possibility, the speculation, that if China were to take a stake in the planned IPO of Saudi state-owned Saudi Aramco, then it is conceivable that the pricing of Saudi oil could shift from US dollars to yuan. If China can tie in Aramco with Russia or Iran at all, she will have a degree of influence over nearly 40% of global production and will be able to progress her desire to exclude dollars for yuan. Incredibly important stuff going on right now in this arena, and I'm sure I do not need to explain exactly why this is so important, but for those who do not know recent history, remember this blast from the past. 16th of February 2003, Iraq nets handsome profit by dumping dollar for euro. Talking about the bizarre political statement by Saddam Hussein in October 2000, when he insisted on dumping the US dollar, the currency of the enemy, for the more multilateral euro. Oh, what a bizarre political statement. But hey, it worked out because he got in just as the euro was reaching its ebb and started its rise. So it was a very fortuitously good idea to start getting euro at that time. And in 16th of February 2003, yeah, everything's coming up roses for Iraq, right? Oh, right. And of course, what happened to Libya's gold? Questions for Corbett number 36. You will remember that we went through the little email from Sidney Blumenthal to Hillary Clinton on Libya in April of 2011, where Sidney talks about the gold and the idea of a gold-backed dinar that Gaddafi was working on at the time with his 143 tons of gold and a similar amount in silver, and how that was something that was raising the ire of the French, as well as, of course, their desire to gain a greater share of Libya oil production. So let the humanitarian love bombing commence. So we do know how these things happen, and this is why this is very earth-shaking and very potentially ominous for what it portends for the near future. If this really is the shot across the bow, then those kinds of shots can turn into real shots very quickly. And obviously, given what's happening in North Korea, this sort of thing can set off in all sorts of different ways right now. Now, here's one of the most interesting things about all of this is that this particular move was foreseen with rather eerie foresight by Robert Fisk. Back in 2009, the demise of the dollar. And he was reporting on sources that he had, well, I'll read just the beginning of this. In the most profound financial change in recent Middle East history, Gulf Arabs are planning, along with China, Russia, Japan, and France, to end dollar dealings for oil, moving instead to a basket of currencies, including the Japanese yen and Chinese yuan, the euro, gold, and a new unified currency planned for nations in the Gulf Cooperation Council, including Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, Kuwait, and Qatar. Secret meetings have already been held by finance ministers and central bank governors in Russia, China, Japan, and Brazil to work on the scheme, which will mean that oil will no longer be priced in dollars. And he was reporting on this from Gulf Arab and Chinese banking sources in Hong Kong, which back in 2009, I remember the story and I remember talking about it at the time. But here we are, 8 years later, and wouldn't you know it, we're pretty much, well, we're starting to see the beginnings of this. And when was this currency transition planned to take place, as predicted back in 2009? 2018. So we are pretty much on track for some pretty cataclysmically large events to be taking place over the course of the next year. This is something absolutely to keep your eye on. But the most important part of this, once you get your mind wrapped around these latest details and what they mean, what precisely is taking place, it is more important to understand that this is a rigged game. And to do that, I have several resources that you should be checking into. Talking about a recent article I did on China and Russia creating the alternate banking system through their various SWIFT alternatimes and the Chinese attempts to circumvent SWIFT and things of this nature that ... are not quite what they seem. They always tend to come back in to the system as it exists and strengthen that system. Because China and Russia and the others are not angling to destroy the fiat crazy system that we have. They are angling to get a better seat at the table in the new multipolar world order, TMRC. The SDR world order, if you will. And I did write about that back last year with a pretty thorough breakdown of what that is going to be about and how the IMF is going to be an important player in this new economic world order, that China is looking to get a better seat at the IMF's table. That's what this is ultimately about. And that is backed up even more by some digging I've been doing in the BRICS 2017 summit in Xiamen, China. I have been digging through the joint declaration and will be reporting more on that this weekend, but I have tweeted out a few little tidbits here. Not only their talk about smart cities and 2030 agenda for sustainable development and we have to save the earth kind of nonsense, but also their resolve to foster a global economic governance architecture with the IMF and with the World Bank, talking about we reaffirm our commitments to ensure full implementation and enforcement of existing WTO rules and are determined to work together to further strengthen the WTO. They're talking about the benefits of globalization that everyone can share in by joining these multilateral administrative bodies, and how the BRICS Bank, the NDB, should be working with the World Bank and the AIIB in order to foster more of this wonderful development that is all going to be taking place in this new world economic order. It is a rigged game that's taking place, and two phony sides are going to be competing for your hearts and minds, your loyalties, and it is another example of the rigged game where if you choose one of the sides, you've already lost the game. That's how these games are set up to work. And over the course of the next year, I think we are going to be seeing some pretty tectonic shifts taking place monetarily, geopolitically, and as a result, potentially militarily. And, that could kick off any day, presumably, in North Korea. We will wait and see. In the meantime, I am going to be talking about these very issues in my presentation at the Open Mind Conference coming up in Denmark just a couple of weeks from now, September 16th. The evening of September 16th, I'm going to be talking about echoes of World War I, China, the US, and the next Great War, and the engineered nature of this coming conflict. So you can, if you are in Denmark or will be there, attend in person, or I, of course, do plan to release that on the website in due course. So, some very important things coming up. This is an extremely important story with lots of different pieces to it that I will be exploring in more detail in my work in the coming days, weeks, and months, I am sure. So please stay tuned for more of that. James Corbett, CorbettReport.com.